I used to think I was pretty grounded. I'm not the type who jumps at shadows or assumes every noise is a ghost. I'm a rational, boring, 26-year-old guy named Adam who works in IT and drinks too much Dunkin'. So when weird things started happening in the rental house I lived in 2 years ago, I tried really, really hard to explain them away. But even now, after moving out, after months of trying to forget, I still wake up some nights convinced there's someone standing just outside my bedroom door. Because for almost 6 months, I wasn't living alone. I just didn't know it. The house was a small one-story place in a quiet neighborhood outside Kansas City. Nothing fancy. Beige carpet, laminate countertops, a backyard with patchy grass. I picked it because it was cheap, close to work, and had a garage. I thought it was a good step up from apartments. The first weird thing happened exactly 1 week after I moved in. It was a Saturday morning. I'd stayed up late the night before playing video games, and when I stumbled out of my bedroom around 10 a.m., the kitchen light was on. Not dim, not flickering. Fully, brightly on. No big deal. Maybe I forgot to turn it off. Except I never used the kitchen light the night before. I microwaved leftovers using the oven's little built-in bulb. I would have noticed that blazing overhead light. I brushed it off. Maybe I was tired and forgot. But the next day, the bathroom light was on when I came home from work. And the day after that, the hallway light. And the day after that, the living room lamp, the one I never touched because the switch sparked once and freaked me out. At first, I joked that my house was trying to raise my electric bill. But underneath the jokes was a growing unease, a little tightening in my stomach every time I walked into a room I knew I left dark. Something was off. I started checking the doors and windows religiously. Deadbolt locked, slider bar in place, alarm armed, garage closed. Everything always looked normal. Still, the lights kept turning on. One night, I set up a stupid little test. I took photos of every switch before bed. Every single one was in the off position when I turned in around 1 a.m. When I woke up at 6:30 for work, the hallway light was on. And the switch in the photo, the one I had a timestamp for, was now flipped up. I started feeling sick each morning before opening my bedroom door, like I didn't know what I was going to see. And I swear, some nights, lying in bed, I heard faint footsteps in the house. Not loud, not clear, just soft shifting, like someone trying very hard to walk quietly. I told myself it was house settling, old wood, pipes, wind. But then things started disappearing. My keys would show up in the wrong room. A hoodie I hadn't seen in weeks suddenly hung neatly in my closet. My box of Cheez-Its vanished entirely. Weeks later, I found it empty and folded under the sink. I tried to joke about it to my coworker, Mia, but when I told her about the lights, she got really quiet. "Adam, you should check your attic." I laughed it off. "Yeah, okay, maybe the attic ghost is hungry." She didn't laugh, just check it. So that night, after pacing around for an hour and hyping myself up with 2 cups of gas station coffee, I grabbed a flashlight and pulled down the attic ladder. The metal hinges screeched, dust rained down. The air felt hot and stale. I climbed 3 steps, just enough to poke my head through the opening, and shined the beam around. Nothing. Just insulation, some old wiring, the usual. But the smell. It wasn't musty like I expected. It smelled like cologne. Men's cologne. I climbed back down fast enough to nearly sprain my ankle. I slept in my locked bedroom that night with a chair pressed under the doorknob. I made an appointment for a smart security system install. I just needed to survive 1 more week. But things escalated before that. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to a faint clicking sound, like someone pressing a button. I froze and held my breath. The clicking happened again and again. Irregular, soft, mechanical. I slowly eased out of bed and put my ear to the door. It was the sound of my stove's igniter clicking in the kitchen. Someone was pressing it. I felt every muscle in my body lock up. After maybe 15 seconds, the clicking stopped. Silence. I didn't leave the bedroom. I sat on the floor with my back to the wall, holding a dumbbell like it was a weapon, and waited for sunrise. When I finally got up the nerve to check the kitchen, two things stood out. My stove knob was slightly turned, and my pantry door was open. Wide open. I called Bill, the landlord, and told him urgent repairs were needed. I couldn't say why. I didn't want to sound insane. He came over that afternoon and checked the slider, the windows, the garage, the door frame. He insisted everything was secure. He even checked the attic, though he barely poked his head in. "Nothing up there," he said. "Just air." His shirt smelled faintly like the same cologne I'd smelled the night before, but I didn't want to think about that. I wanted to believe he was right. 2 days before the security system appointment, I came home late, around 11 p.m. I'd stopped for Taco Bell and sat in my car a moment, brain-fried from a long shift. When I finally walked toward the house, something felt wrong. The porch light was on. I never used the porch light. Inside, the air felt heavy and warm, like someone had just been there. I placed the takeout bag on the counter quietly, listening. Then I saw it. A cup. A plain glass cup in the sink, half full of water. I never used glasses. I drank from disposable bottles because I hated dishes. For a moment, the house was dead silent. Then a soft creak came from the hallway. One I'd heard before. One I'd heard many times, but always at night, always when I was safely behind my locked bedroom door. Someone was in my house. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and called 911. I whispered my address and backed toward the front door. Before I reached it, the hallway creaked again, this time followed by a soft shuffle. Then another. Someone was walking toward me. I didn't wait. I bolted outside, barefoot, sprinting to the sidewalk. I didn't look back until I reached the street. 3 police cars pulled up within minutes. They swept the house, checking every room, every closet, every window. Nothing. No sign of forced entry, no footprints, no open windows, no unlocked doors. But when they checked the attic, this time they didn't dismiss it. Up there, tucked behind the HVAC unit, they found a crumpled sleeping bag, a flashlight, 2 empty bottles of water, an open bag of my Cheez-Its, and, worst of all, a small notebook. Inside were pages of handwritten observations. My schedule, what time I showered, what time I left for work, when I usually went to bed, which lights I turned off, which ones I forgot. One line made my stomach drop so far I felt like I was falling. He's a deep sleeper. Bedroom door squeaks too loud. Use hallway time 3 to 4 a.m. We never found the guy. The cops said he must have slipped out through the backyard when I ran outside. The fence was low, the yards connected. He knew the house better than I did. He'd been watching me for months. They suggested I stay with a friend. I didn't go back into that house, not even to pack. My parents came the next day with police supervision and grabbed what I needed. I broke the lease. I paid whatever fee they wanted. I didn't care. It's been almost 2 years since then, and I live in a 3rd-floor apartment with no attic, no basement, no crawl spaces. Everything locks automatically. I triple-check every window before bed. I don't feel watched here. Not really. But sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear something in the walls. A soft creak, a faint shift. just enough to make me hold my breath. And sometimes, even when I'm sure I turned every switch off, I find a light on. Just one. Waiting. Take a breath. That was only the beginning. Hit subscribe, and let's dive into the next story. I don't usually tell people this story unless they've already had a few drinks, because every time I talk about it out loud, I start second-guessing my own memory. But I know what happened. And even now, years later, certain smells, damp leaves, cold charcoal, old wood, can send me right back to that night. This was in early fall of 2019. I had taken a long weekend to meet up with 3 friends from high school: Derek, Lauren, and Evan. We'd rented a small cabin in rural West Virginia, up a narrow road full of potholes and sharp turns. The cabin itself wasn't totally isolated. It sat about a half-mile off the main road. But once you stepped out onto the back deck, all you saw were trees. No neighboring cabins, no traffic, no cell service. It was supposed to be a quiet, unplugged weekend. Good food, board games, beer, hiking. Nothing spooky. That didn't last. The first night, around midnight, someone knocked on our door. Not a polite knock either. It was a slow, dragging, open hand type of knock. Like someone pressing their whole palm against the wood and sliding it downward. We all froze. Evan muted the TV. Derek whispered, "You expecting anyone?" Of course, none of us were. Lauren peeked through the peephole and said, "There's no one there." We thought maybe it was an animal bumping against the porch, maybe a raccoon messing with the trash bin. Derek opened the door a couple inches. Nothing. Just trees and fog. But as soon as we shut the door, something felt off. I can't explain it, but the room felt different, like someone else was inside with us. That should have been our first clue to leave. The next morning was calm. Sunlight through the pines, the smell of coffee, bacon sizzling. We laughed about the ghost knock, chalked it up to the wind, and went hiking. We found an old fire road behind the cabin and followed it until it faded into thick brush. On the way back, though, Lauren stopped dead in her tracks. "Guys," she said, pointing at the ground. "Those weren't here before." Clear footprints. Bare footprints. Not animal. Human. A single set, walking toward the cabin. We joked about some barefoot hiker being at one with nature, but none of us were really laughing. That evening, we grilled burgers on the deck. The sky turned gray early, clouds building into a heavy overcast. By 9 p.m., the woods were so dark it felt like the world beyond the deck simply stopped existing. We brought the food inside, started a fire in the wood stove, put on some music. For a couple hours, everything felt normal again. Until around 11:30 p.m., when we heard it. Not a knock this time. A whistle. A weird, shaky whistle coming from behind the cabin. 3 slow notes. Pause. 3 slow notes again. Not a bird, not a person casually whistling. It sounded intentional. Like someone trying to get our attention in the creepiest way possible. Derek turned off the music. Evan grabbed the flashlight. Lauren kept repeating, "Don't open the door! Don't open the door!" We all stood there listening, and the whistle came again. Closer this time. Maybe 20 feet from the back deck. I don't know what got into Derek, but he flung the door open and shined the flashlight into the yard. And for a split second, I swear I saw movement behind a cluster of trees. Something pale. A shoulder? An arm? Evan whispered, "There's someone out there." The whistle stopped. None of us wanted to split up. We dragged the couch and chairs closer to the front door, keeping all the lights on. Lauren kept checking the window, even though she didn't want to look outside anymore. Just after 1 a.m., something hit the side of the cabin. A thud, like someone throwing a rock, or their fist, against the wall near the bathroom. Evan swore under his breath. Derek told everyone to stay calm. I stood up to check, but as soon as I got near the hallway, I heard footsteps outside the bathroom window. Slow, deliberate, crunching on dead leaves. I backed away fast. Lauren turned off the lights without warning, whispering, "If he can see us, that's worse." Everything went pitch black, except for the embers in the wood stove. We all held our breath. And then, right outside the darkened window, someone whispered, "Come out." Just 2 words. Calm, low, male. Lauren made a tiny choking sound. Derek grabbed the fireplace poker. Evan whispered my name like he needed to know I was still there. I don't remember moving, but suddenly I was crouched behind the coffee table, heart pounding so hard I could hear blood in my ears. A slow, dragging sound moved along the exterior wall, like fingers tracing the wooden siding. The whisper came again, this time right next to the window. "I see the lights off." We didn't move. We didn't respond. We didn't even breathe. The porch steps creaked. 1 step. Pause. Another step. Pause. Whoever it was walked up to the front door. We heard the boards flex under his weight. Then, the doorknob started turning. Slowly, quietly, testing if it was locked. By some miracle, Derek had locked it earlier without thinking. The knob twisted harder, then rattled violently. Lauren whimpered. Evan pressed his hand over her mouth. Then the rattling stopped. Silence. For maybe 10 seconds. And then something slid under the door. A piece of paper. I waited until the shadow moved away before I crawled forward and grabbed it. It wasn't a note. It was a photo. A printed 4x6 photo of our cabin, taken from the woods, during daylight. You could see the deck, the grill, the windows, everything. On the back, someone had written in pencil, "I like watching you." My whole body went cold. Before I could even show the others, a loud smash came from the back of the cabin, like someone slamming something heavy against the rear door. The whole place shook. We ran. Not outside, too risky. We barricaded ourselves in the living room, dragging the dining table and the bookshelf against the front door. The wood stove hissed as the fire died down, making long shadows stretch across the walls. Another smash. Another. Then footsteps circling the cabin again. At one point, I swear I heard breathing through the bathroom vent. We stayed awake until sunrise. None of us closed our eyes even once. As soon as there was enough daylight to see the tree line, we packed everything. We didn't eat breakfast, didn't check the firewood, didn't clean up. We piled into Derek's SUV and sped down the road until we finally got cell reception. We called the county sheriff. 2 deputies met us at a gas station near the highway. We told them everything. The knocks, the whistle, the photograph. They asked if we still had the photo. I handed it over. One deputy looked at it for a long time, then said something I'll never forget. "We've had a few reports out there. Someone keeps to the woods, won't talk when approached, doesn't take food, doesn't leave signs of a camp, just watches." Lauren asked them if anyone had been hurt. The deputy didn't answer at first. Then he said, "Not that we can prove." They offered to check the cabin, but we refused to go back. We got refunds, threw our stuff together, and drove home in near silence. For weeks afterward, I kept imagining that whistle behind me when I walked to my car at night. Sometimes I'd dream about the cabin and wake up thinking someone was standing outside my window. I still avoid cabins completely.